You know the problem with hiking something called the Skyline Trail? You have to hike to the skyline to start.
Yeah, which I'm pretty sure there was a driving option, but no, it's like 85 degrees out here and we're hiking.
Driving is boring. One of the fun parts of the travel that we do is you get to see really cool places and experience places. And there's times when we get to spend a week or more somewhere. And then there's times when we only get to spend a night or two. And unfortunately, that's one of these times is a very short stay at Davis Mountains State Park in Fort Davis, Texas. It's a campground and a state park where we've tried to nibble away at some of the things to do, but I wish we had more days here to really enjoy it.
This was a park where we actually originally only intended to stay one night and then discovered there were a few things to do here and in the area and made a conscious effort to expand our trip to 2 nights. So glad we did because it allowed us to experience a couple things here at the park as well as outside the park, which we'll get to in a little bit. And I really wish we could have spent longer. I didn't realize how many things there were to do in this area, and I wish we had figured that out. So maybe we'll have to come back someday.
It is a beautiful area. It is in the Davis Mountains, and it is a dark sky area. This whole area is part of a dark sky reserve that they've got, 15,000 acres, I think?
I mean, it stretches all the way from here way down to Big Bend and then in a ways. I mean, it's one of the last few vestiges of zero artificial light pollution in the entire United States and in fact the world. And so it's a key area for people who are coming to, just wanting to live in the darkness, but also for astronomers and researchers and everything that are dealing with whether it's studying animals and nocturnal behavior to the stars and everything in between. Way over there, sort of where my finger is pointing, on top of that hill, way, way, way back there, is the McDonald Observatory. And it's one of the most famous observatories in the world, and there's been a lot of scientific discoveries there about planets and galaxies and all sorts of things, because it's super dark here in this region of Texas. It's one of the dark sky preserve areas. And we got to go there last night for a star party where we learned all about dark skies and light pollution and a constellation tour of the sky. And then we got to look through some of the telescopes that they have there. Not the big research telescopes, but they're just their regular telescopes that they use in the public view. And that was a really cool experience.
We did not hike to that.
We did not hike to that. That's 13 miles away. So we drove, and we drove back because, it was like midnight when we got done.
And it's like 13 miles straight up because that mountain's quite a bit higher than where we're at.
Yeah, that's like the highest mountain around here, which is why the observatory is placed there. So we're not hiking there, but it was really cool. If you get a chance to be in this part of Texas, get to McDonald Observatory and try to book one of their nighttime sky programs.
I will say this is the first campground I've been at where I recall seeing so many campers with tripods and telescopes set out all day long because they're the big telescopes and they just cover them to protect them from the sun and then they're ready to go at night. I don't know how many, I lost track of how many I saw in this camp.
Yeah, there's quite a few. That is a big draw in this area. So
it is a nice campground. It's not huge and there's different sections. There's some that have electric only. There's some that have no hookup at all. We happen to be in a full hookup site. We're up at the top of a hill. It's a really pretty site. I sort of stumbled into that we're able to get because we have 50 and 30 amp. We have water and we have sewer hookup right on the site.
Well, and you can see these gorgeous mountains right behind us. I mean, this whole place is built into the Davis Mountains, and so you can't go bad with the site here.
Yeah, they're all really nice from what I can tell just from walking around the campground. And if you can get here for a few days, that's the great way to do it. The only way we could do it, though, is because we have Starlink. I want to mention that because with your full-time job, you've got to have connectivity. And you had, one bar on Verizon?
One bar on Verizon. Enough to kind of get a signal, but it was not going to be enough to work on.
Yeah, and I had nothing on T-Mobile in the campground. When we did a hike up to the top of the mountains, I had full 5G, but I wasn't going to do that all day long.
Well, because that's when you were at the top, you could see the town of Fort Davis down below, and there's I think a cell tower at the top of this hill up here in the campground.
And there is
in the park.
There is some AT&T. Our van has AT&T, so as we're driving around, we'll pick up a signal doing that. But I will mention that. So if you're planning some time here, depending on what your needs are, keep that in mind in terms of what you're going to have for a cell signal, which is probably not much for most of us. Speaking of the top of the mountain, we did manage to fit in 2 trail hikes. It was really one long trail hike. We combined 2 trails and made a loop. There is the Skyline Drive Trail, which takes you up and back and forth and back and forth and around to get up to the top of the mountain behind us. And then we took that and connected to the old CCC trail, which is actually the original Civilian Conservation Corps road that they used when they were building things in this park.
Yes, because the CCC was very influential in essentially creating this park. And so there are historic features and buildings throughout, whether that's picnic tables, overlooks, an old bathroom building, a lodge, stairs, and a number of other things that were here.
I was laughing because I was going to mention the old bathroom building. It's not used as a bathroom anymore. It's all cleaned out, but you can still go into it and see it, and it's built into the side of the mountain. And they said it was the loo with a view. And so it was a really kind of pretty setting to have a bathroom, but that's, everything around here is pretty.
Well, and when you take that trail, so yeah, so the Skyline, you can go in either direction and make a loop, whichever way you go. Keeping note that I think the Skyline Trail was completely straight up the whole way. The CCC trail then we thought was going to be down the whole way, which would have made sense, but no. It goes down, 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 and then up, 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 and then somehow you crest out where you started. And I don't know, somehow because we were going through the mountain. So keep that in mind, that the CCC trail is uphill both ways.
I would say the trail, particularly the Skyline Trail, is moderate. I think that's what it's rated. The biggest thing is when you leave from the Campground, which the section we're in is the full hookup sites, which is by the amphitheater, you can cut into the Skyline Trail there, and that's essentially going straight up at that point.
Yeah.
It's about a 500, 600-foot climb, and I think it's all within the first 3/4 of a mile.
Yeah, that was quite a bit. That was probably the most strenuous part of the entire thing. There's one thing to note, though. This is a 2-part note. There is a driving road that takes you all the way up to that overlook. So if you do not want to hike, but you want to get to the overlook, you want to see the CCC structures and that bathroom building and the overlook, you can just drive yourself up there. And you can then see everything there is to see. What we discovered was if you take the trail all the way up there and follow the trail to the end, you end up missing some of that stuff in the middle and have to take a steep set of steps back up to that parking area and then walk through the road in the parking area to see the structures. Because we thought we were walking to them only to realize we crested a hill and we were past them. And I'm like, great, now we got to add more steps because God, we got to go walk back up this hill, down the parking lot, and then around and around. And it was well worth it, very worth it. But know that, and if you're not up for what ended up being for us a 5-mile hike, just get in your car and drive up there. It'll be just as pretty.
Although when you are hiking Skyline and you end up going around the mountain a bit or whatever, I mean, you're going to end up seeing some views that you aren't going to see when you're driving.
This is true.
You got some really nice views looking down over the town of Fort Davis. You mentioned that you can see the cell towers, but you can see the town of Fort Davis below. You can see Fort Davis itself, which is what everything's named for, the actual old fort that was here. There's just a lot of, as you walk around, you just keep making a circle, and there's so many mountains everywhere here in the Davis Mountains. You're surrounded by it in this park that every turn you take, you have a new view, and that was really neat.
One of the things that you can see and get a really good view of is the lodge that's here. And that lodge was constructed by the CCC. It's a white adobe structure. It has since been added on to, I think in the 60s, they made some additions and added more rooms. And right now the lodge is completely closed for renovations, and you can't get anywhere close to it to see it, which we were bummed about because we wanted to at least even go check it out, walk inside, or even just catch a glimpse of it. And they've completely block the road off and you can't get there. That means if you don't have a camper though, or a trailer, you can book a room at the lodge when it is open. And they have a restaurant and a pool there, and apparently it's very popular.
This entire park is popular. It is one of those that fills up in the busy months, and so they say you want to look ahead when you're trying to book a site here. And it depends on the type of site you need. I'm assuming probably full hookups go first, but you never know. So there's a variety of campers here today in terms of the types of RVs that are here, and so people are coming and going and all kinds of things, and I can see why this is a popular place.
Well, I am kind of wondering, we have discovered that Texas is sort of backwards in its camping season, and that by the time summer rolls around, it's hot. And people in Texas don't want to go camping in the summer. They go camping in like the fall and the spring and even the winter a little bit. So keep that in mind if you're one of those crazy people like us coming from Michigan, where it's cold all winter long and we're ready to go camping in the summer. We'll probably be here. The Texans, they're ready to just go sit in their air conditioning all day. So you might luck out in the summertime.
Well, that summer heat and that starts in the spring, I think here is part of why in certain loops that are here, most of the campsites that you're at have what you can probably see over our heads is the shade roofs, the Ramada, I think they call it. I don't know, some sort of a picnic shelter with a picnic table. So that is nice to have that. I know you worked outside for a while today, even though it was 87 degrees.
Well, 87 degrees felt great coming off of our recent stay at Big Bend where it was 105. So 85 was like put on your parka weather at this point. But yeah, it was nice because the sun was just in the right spot that this completely covered us. So
yeah, that's nice to have something to keep in mind. You mentioned that, it was actually chilly last night. You talked earlier in the video that we could see the McDonald Observatory from the Skyline Trail. We had jackets on last night because it was cold to us. It was our first day out of the desert after leaving Big Bend, and we went to a star party. But you and I talked about also, even if somebody can't go that late at night and stay out for a star party or there isn't one available, it's still worth driving up there to see it and see the visitor center.
I agree. And I don't know if there was a cost to going into the visitor center if you just show up, because we paid for the star party, which was a special event. So you'll have to do your own research on visiting and hours and pay and all that, fees and stuff. But they do different programs throughout the week and throughout the year. So there are different star parties that you can go to, and I think they do them 2 or 3 times a week. There are special tours that you can do a couple times a month of their big research telescopes. Those are a bit pricey, and they are but I would assume that they would be worth it. And I would have loved to have done one. They just happened to not coincide with when we were here. And then I think that there was an astrophotography workshop that I would have loved to have signed up for, but you needed to be here all week and we couldn't do that. So if you can get to McDonald, again, it is one of the premier research observatories in the world. So well worth the visit. It's just up the road. And just make sure that you get out here. And if nothing else, you can learn about your dark skies and light pollution and what you should be doing to preserve and protect the dark skies, whether that's the type and color of light bulbs you use, to how you should cover your light poles and lamps to prevent the light from going into the sky, how you can convince your local municipality to put in ordinances that prevent all this crazy light pollution, so that we can keep our dark skies so people can see the Milky Way, because there are so few places left to see the night sky in its, natural state.
We sort of stumbled into this park, and I'm so glad that we did. I mean, we were coming out of Big Bend, and we had mentioned to somebody that we were going to be heading in this sort of direction, going north and west out of Big Bend. And they said, oh, make sure you get to the Davis Mountains. So I looked into it and found Davis Mountain State Park. After we told somebody we were going to be at Davis Mountain State Park, they said, well, are you going to McDonald Observatory? And then you found out about that, and that was a done deal. We had to go see it. And then we found out that we were going to be here 2 nights, and one of the nights they did a star party. So it all worked out. It all worked out. We got really lucky. We stumbled into it, and that's another great part about traveling is you can find these places and check them out. And this is why we share them on YouTube with you, because we want to share them with you so that you find out about them, and maybe you can make a trip out here to Davis Mountain State Park. In the meantime, keep on trekking.
And we'll see you out there.